So thank you again very much for coming. Thank you to the candidates for putting themselves forward so that we have a good contested election in this seat. And I'll now ask the first candidate to begin their 3-minute speech.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Guy Defay, and I have to say I haven't been down here to do this incredibly for 10 years. And I see some familiar faces in the audience, and I have to say it looks as though you've aged better than I have. Why am I running in number 3 and not out on the senatorial trail? Well, one good reason is because I think actually number 3 and 4 in St Helier faces some very serious problems in the not too distant future. You may have read recently an estimate from a scrutiny panel that there will be 26,000 more people in this island by 2035. That's the equivalent apparently to 230 Le Marais high-rise blocks. Well, even if we were to distribute that roughly by equal across the parishes, that's still roughly 20 blocks per parish, but I think we can guarantee it's not going to pan out like that. We know the current policy is for most residential accommodation to come into St Helier. And this is part of St Helier, and it's my view that this part of St Helier is going to come under the greatest pressure to take on board that extra residential requirement. So, regrettably, stand by for finding that near where you live there may be some massive housing development taking place, and that green field you currently look out upon may not be a green field for much longer. But that's less than half the story, because predictably your government hasn't told you the main problem, and I only happen to know this from being a minister 10 years ago. And that is that as we head towards 130,000, and at the moment we have nothing to put the brakes on, our infrastructure will begin to fail. And that means we're going to need probably another hospital in addition to the one we're already considering. We'll need a new reservoir. We'll need another sewage works. We will need another secondary school. I assume they'll put that in St Helier as well. And apparently that'll be supported by 10 new primary schools. I will spend almost my entire speech on this subject because if we don't control population, Jersey as we know it now is going to change dramatically. We're looking at almost catastrophic changes coming down the road. Not only will the infrastructure not be able to cope, we'll have to pay for new infrastructure, and guess who will be doing that? And unless we tackle that problem, it will become unavoidable. We will not be able to turn around to people and say, I'm sorry, we can't find you housing, even though it's bad enough as it is. That appears to be my 3 minutes.
Thank you,
Thank you for listening.
Mr. Defay.
Population, our biggest problem.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Julian Rogers. I live in Raleigh Lane, which is just north of Rougebrule. I came to Jersey from a business background in the UK more than 40 years ago to work in civil aviation. Some of you may remember Intra Airways, I hope with affection. I now own and run a long-established Jersey-based software house. Jersey's been a good place to live, to bring up our family, and to run my sort of business, and I'm grateful for it. I have served as chairman of the state's members' remuneration review body and as a member of the Jersey Appointments Commission. I'm currently chairman of the Unit Management Committee of the Jersey Sea Cadets and a member of the Parish of St Helier Roads Committee. I became a member of Reform Jersey 2 years ago because I saw the sense in having a group of like-minded states members seek the opinion of the public, form and agree policies of public benefit, present those policies to the electorate, which is what we're doing now, and share the work of promoting those policies through the states. Teamwork helps. We don't have research assistants in Jersey, so states members have to do their own legwork, or accept whatever they're told as gospel, though in that case they need to be sure that the gospel comes from the latest group of consultants. Fortunately, the nature of our island makes confrontational party politics, as in the UK, unlikely. We are a small community with acknowledged challenges. All of your candidates this evening will have cost of living, population, barely affordable housing, and jobs in mind, with shared foreboding about the effect of demolishing one hospital while building another one on the same site at the same time. Then there is the problem of what happens after this election. A chief minister is elected by states members, and he or she assembles a team which eventually produces a plan. 6 months is par for the course. I cannot assure you that any such plan will fully take into consideration the manifestos which you see from us as your candidates this evening. But I can assure you that Reform Jersey will do its utmost to fulfil its 10 manifesto pledges and report back to you at the end of each year. The parish of St Helier does this at a parish assembly every month. Perhaps states departments should attempt something similar with a different department each month. So I ask you to boldly go and vote Reform Jersey. Thank you.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Mary AYLING-PHILLIP, and I'm a Reform Jersey candidate standing for deputy in St Helier 3 and 4 district. Having grown up and lived for over 40 years in this district, I am well aware of the issues that arise in this part of St Helier. Taking up matters on behalf of town residents will be a top priority for me. I was centrally involved in the campaign to save People's Park. I'm chair of the West of Town Community Association WATCA and a member of the St Helier in Bloom group. I have been involved in defending, extending and improving St Helier's green spaces, vitally important with the continued development and population growth in St Helier. I have worked as a youth worker, childcare officer and for over 20 years as a lecturer at Highlands College. I have a BA Honours in Humanity, Certificate in Education, Diploma in Youth and Community Work, and an MA in Sociology. I'm currently a coordinator at the University College Jersey and have responsibility for pastoral care. I've worked all my life to challenge discrimination and create equal opportunities for all learners to achieve their full potential and to improve their life chances. My professional experience has given me skills to read and write reports, analyse data, and think on my feet. By standing with Reform Jersey, electors can see the clearly thought through, costed policies. Working as a team within the party is much more effective than working as an individual. We will be able to deliver results. Firstly, to work towards implementing the recommendations of the Independent Care Inquiry, to ensure all young people can thrive and that the new proposed Department for Children, Young People, Education and Skills will really work to achieve the best outcomes for all islanders. Secondly, to make a concerted drive to improve the standard of living for all islanders by tackling poverty, by raising the minimum wage to £10 an hour by 2022 and ending the inappropriate use of 0 hours contracts, introducing a rent freeze in social housing and reducing the costs of GPs' visits for those on low incomes. Thirdly, to press for more training courses to be available for local residents to take to update their skills so they can take up the vacancies in the skills shortage areas. This will also help reduce the need for such high levels of immigration. Also,
thank you. If I could bring you to a close.
Okay. Just reduce the social security contributions for lower income self-employed people starting up new small businesses. Thank you.
Well, good evening, and thank you for taking time to come to the hustings. I'm JACQUI CARREL, and I'd really appreciate you voting for me for deputy in this district. There are so many things we can discuss, so in this short time, I'll cover these three topics: local roads, environment, and health, and then I'll let you know why I'm good for the job. First, local roads. Concerns that keep coming up are congestion, pedestrian and cycle safety, and road surface conditions. Really, there's nothing that can't or shouldn't be solved here. Road congestion and pedestrian safety can start to be addressed soon, and I will ask to be on the transport group to look at medium and long-term measures. Next, environment. Currently, we have problems with excess nitrates in our water, annual sea lettuce invasions into St Albans Bay, and a real problem dealing with asbestos from old buildings. These things are subtly affecting our quality of life and health, and they'll have a knock-on effect to subsequent generations if we're not careful. As part of Save Our Shoreline, I've been involved for some years in campaigning to get these problems solved, even when I faced a fair bit of opposition. Finally, we're getting some traction, and I'll make sure these issues aren't dropped. And some really exciting news. I'm meeting with someone in a few weeks' time to talk about an innovative new way to deal with our asbestos problem that hasn't been looked at here before, so watch this space. Third, health. The major problems that I get quite hot under the collar about include inadequate provision for the elderly and those with mental health issues, a growing problem with obesity and the related illnesses, and that hospital saga. Imagine how we'd benefit from an end to trailing around from one department to another in an effort just to find basic help. A real food and exercise strategy, including taking GST off fresh foods, and a hospital built for purpose and facilities and conditions to entice key staff to come here and to stay here. Now, I can't promise to solve all these things overnight, or indeed by myself, but I can, for example, advise on nutrition and sit on scrutiny panels for the other issues. So lastly, why am I a good representative for you? I'm not afraid to stand up and be counted, because I care. I have academic qualifications and practical experience in a number of different areas, and I listen to people, I ask the right questions, and I collaborate well. So I've spoken about traffic concerns, the environment and health, and why I'd fit well in for the job. And there's so much more. So I'll be around afterwards to talk, and you can find about me on my website. And if you would like to ask me even more questions, then find me jacquicarrel.co.uk/concerns. Thank you.
My name is Mike Higgins, and I've had the honour of being one of your 4 deputies for the last 9.5 years. I won't go into my background at this time, but my manifesto will give you all the information you need. Since entering the States Assembly, I've played a very active role in trying to hold ministers and civil servants to account for their actions, as was recently revealed in a Jersey Evening Post article that listed who were the most active and inactive members in the States. Despite being diagnosed with cancer and undergoing treatment over the last 3 years, I was ranked as the 3rd most active member of the States in terms of questions asked and propositions brought to the Assembly, closely following Jeff Southern and Sam Messick. I hate injustice, and much of my time in the States has been spent helping those who've been badly treated by States departments, agencies, and the legal system. Although the vast majority of our civil servants are good, Some have gone rogue, and some are corrupt. These individuals have abused their positions, lied in court, or otherwise perverted the course of justice. And they've caused serious damage to their victims and their victims' families. I want to see them in court to answer for what they've done. I also want to out those who've been protecting them or turning a blind eye to their crimes when substantive and credible evidence is in existence. Corruption is a cancer that has to be cut out of the public sector. For if it exists in one department and the people are allowed to get away with it, it will spread to other departments and affect every citizen in this island. I also feel that our political, economic, and legal systems are broken and are in need of a major overhaul, and if re-elected, I'll do my very best to help to try and repair them. I also believe that we've been badly let down by successive councils of ministers who haven't been acting in the best interests of the island or the people of Jersey. We need to bring population under control. We need to adopt fair and balanced taxation policies that don't penalise middle and low earners in our society as it does now. We need to prepare for a post-Brexit future, which may or may not have serious implications for the island. We need to prepare for the coming tsunami in the economy and workplace that is coming over the next 5, 10, and 20 years with the increasing use of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and robotics in the island. My voting record in supporting the ordinary men and women in this island is second to none. I want a better society for all islanders and not the few. I want to narrow the gap between the haves and have-nots. I want our children to be able to get reasonably priced housing rather than having to live at home with their parents or having to pay extortionate rents or to have to leave the island. If you want a politician who is prepared to speak out and fight for your rights and interests or put forward an alternative view, then please give me your vote on the 16th of May. Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight. I'm Ina Gardiner. I live in the district with my Jersey-born husband, David, and our 2-year-old daughter, Mia. I'm an independent candidate, and I did not accept any donations towards campaign costs. If you have received a flyer from me, I have delivered it personally. I wanted to say hello. And if I still didn't deliver my flyer, you will see it in the future, because it's important for me to connect with you and to have a dialogue, what's important for all of us. You might recognize I don't have Jersey accent, but I have lived here for 9 years, and this is my permanent home. I think it's a huge compliment, big compliment for Jersey democracy that I'm able to stand here today as your candidate to the States. What makes me qualified to be your deputy? First, I have been trained and worked as a social worker. And then, since my master's degree, I have been an international consultant improving the efficiencies for global organizations such as Nissan, Zara, Cadbury's parent company. But you would like to know why you should vote for me. I'm going to give you 3 things which are important for me and for our parishioners. First, I will be a voice for St. Helier ratepayers. St. Helier ratepayers, we pay for maintenance, public parks, public toilets, children playgrounds, and others. Then anywhere else on the island, it's paid by the states from our tax. And it's not fair. We should be treated fairly. Second, the road safety is an issue in our parish, and I support Constable for traffic calming measures, and I would go further with with helping to put pedestrian crossings. For example, at the base stores, when I was canvassing here on Inner Road, to cross Inner Road, it's a danger. Third, I want to develop community hubs with clubs and the social groups for all ages at highly populated areas like La Pucale and the First Tower, to decrease isolation experienced by vulnerable groups. I will hold regular surgeries to meet with you and to discuss parish matters. I believe that together we can make a difference to our community and to our economy. Thank you for considering one of your votes for me. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. First of all, I apologise for the growth stubble. I did have a rash and they advised just to keep it on for a little while longer. My name is Richard Rondel. I'm currently one of your 4 deputies. I'm seeking re-election because I want to continue the hard work for the next 4 years to address some of the challenges that we face as a parish and as an island. 3 of the challenges that we need to address over the next term are protecting the environment, providing better housing with much more open space, and ensuring we have a sustainable population policy. Tonight, I will be outlining my vision in respect of these issues. Other challenges include poverty, which has to be dealt with, and education. More detail of these can be found in my manifesto, which is on your seats. Firstly, however, I wanted to let you know that the last 4 years have been the toughest of my life. There was a time when I thought I would never be able to put myself forward for election again. I would like to thank you for your support you have shown me. Please know that I am now even more ready to fight for you and to fight for a fairer Jersey. We need to do more to protect our environment. Whilst we need to deliver more affordable housing for our young people, our children and great-grandchildren, this shouldn't come at the expense of our environment. And we need to ensure that any development is done tastefully and with plenty of open space. As Assistant Minister for DFI, I have fought for improved cycle tracks and more bus shelters. A minor thing, but a major thing to individual people, especially the elderly. This is working because more people are taking public transport. The next government needs to continue delivering this essential work. The next island plan needs to make adequate provision for affordable housing. Not only is this essential to ensure that our young people are afforded the same opportunities as us, but it's fundamental to deliver on housing if we are going to attract a significant number of young people back to the island to work and live. In doing so, we can reduce the need for large levels of inward migration and restrict the pressures on infrastructure and introduce what I've always been in favour of, a work permit scheme. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a privilege to have served you over the last 7 years. I consider myself to be caring, capable and committed to represent you over the next 4 years. If you agree, then I would ask you to lend me one of your votes in this election.
Good evening. I'm Anne Southern and I've lived in this district for 27 years. I retired as head of English at Helier some years ago, and whilst leading the Teachers' Union, I trained as a negotiator and caseworker. I'm proud to be standing as a Reform Jersey candidate. I believe only a team standing on a shared manifesto with 10 key pledges can deliver the change that is urgently needed. We're a wealthy island with inner city problems. We have people dependent on food banks. We have children going to school hungry. We have children in overcrowded accommodation. The education service needs more funding to provide well-qualified specialist teachers to enable all children to reach their potential. They should not be taught in oversized classes with a shortage of textbooks. We are losing too many excellent, experienced teachers worn down by the tick box culture, where they have to follow an ever more prescriptive curriculum with constant monitoring. It is time to trust our teachers to deliver real education. We're delighted our students are to have their university fees paid, but this needs to be sustainably funded, and the money should not come from school budgets. We propose to change the tax system in a way that would cut taxes for middle earners whilst asking the top 5% of earners to pay just a little more. This would fund those fees well into the future. We need more funding for our public services, particularly mental health services. We could do this by raising the cap on social security payments so high earners pay the same proportion of their income as middle earners. It is shameful that 11% of our workforce are on 0 hours contracts. We will work to have the JACQUI guidelines legally enforced to prevent the abuse of these contracts, where workers have no security, no hope of getting a lease or a mortgage, and have no right to sick pay. Is this what we want in our wealthy island? Will this create the employee loyalty that will boost productivity and growth? We're delighted that following Reform Jersey pressure, the public sector has become a living wage employer and other companies are following suit, realising that this boosts their reputation and gives them a loyal workforce. Our low-wage economy costs the taxpayers millions a year in income support. Why should taxpayers fork out to prop up low-paying employers? Why would hard-working people have the indignity of claiming income support in order to survive? We must put money into the hands of the lower paid, whose increased spending will boost the economy. Together we can make a difference. We say no to high rents, no to tax rises for low and middle earners, no to cuts to our public services. If you want a fairer and more equal society, vote for Reform Jersey and for me, Anne Southern, on the 16th of May.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Steve AHIER. I'm a Jerseyman and I have lived in our parish here at First Tower for over 30 years, so I understand the problems we face in our local community. Our island has come to a crossroads and you have the power to change the political landscape. If you elect me as your deputy, there are several things I hope to achieve. My number one priority would be the removal of GST from food and utility bills, as this is having a detrimental effect on the lives of most people and it is causing financial hardship to the elderly, disabled, disadvantaged and chronically ill. Even in the UK, food is exempt from VAT. If the GST was to be removed, the Treasury could charge a higher rate for luxury goods and people would not have to choose between heat or eat. In a wealthy island, we should not accept the adversity this tax causes. We desperately need a drop-in medical centre to alleviate the pressure on the emergency department and to ensure that people who are unable to afford the exorbitant cost of a GP visit, such as the elderly with long-term health conditions, the low-paid and disadvantaged, will get the medical attention they require for a nominal fee. With regard to our town centre, we badly need economic investment. We desperately need a revitalisation project that would promote new businesses, help existing businesses, and bring more people back into the heart of St Helier. Electoral reform is also an important point, as our current system is antiquated and there are already 14 States members who will be sitting in the new States Assembly who have not received a single vote. Is this democratic? No, it's not. Democracy needs to be seen to be done. We must reduce our reliance on disposable plastic. We are poisoning our seas and oceans, killing our marine and wildlife, and causing irreparable damage to our ecosystem, which our children and future generations will have to address. We should consider a return to glass bottles with a refundable deposit. We should be investing in renewable energy sources, and people should be given incentives, not disincentives, to encourage them to invest in these, as this is the way forward and will reduce our dependency on the French power grid, which is always at the mercy of French workers' strikes. I'm not a career politician who has lost touch with the everyday problems and concerns of ordinary people. If elected, I promise to give my all to my elected position and make sure your issues and concerns are fully addressed at local and island level. Please vote AHIER for Deputy. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Mary Helier. This is the first occasion I have sought election for the States Assembly, and I felt a few words about myself would therefore be helpful. Born into a farming family, my brother continues to farm part-time in St Peter, along caring for our 93-year-old father. Both my sisters also live locally. One is a dog sitter walker and the other is a driving instructor. We had a good childhood, but were not wealthy. And at 15 years old, I left school and went into employment in the income tax department. After that, I went to other states departments and also a local accountancy firm. I'm a qualified accounting technician and remain a member today. During this period, I was a scout leader at St Juan and also took part in the overseas aid programme. As a people person, the bulk of my working life, 25 years in fact, has been as a police officer, and the majority of that as a police inspector. I studied with the University of London in my time off, and in 2013 obtained an LLB in law. I'm married to David, and we have an 11-year-old daughter, Natalie. I currently work in Cyril and Muckle House, supporting departmental change projects, and until recently preparing freedom of information responses. I'm obviously on time out at the present. I'm standing for election since rather than denounce the efforts of those in government, I would like to use my skills and experience to work constructively with others on issues that we as voters are all concerned about. The hospital, lack of affordable housing, education, immigration and Jersey's response to Brexit, amongst other important issues. I take pride in having been a police officer throughout my service and working closely with the community, particularly the community of St Helier. I have a depth of understanding and practical first-hand experience working with, for people from all walks of life and the range of matters that involve political decision-making. Cases affecting the young, the old, vulnerable, mental health, road safety, many social behaviour and crime, amongst many other issues affecting people's quality of life. Most importantly, I have the skills to faithfully represent constituents. I possess strong team working ability, consider issues in a balanced and logical manner, and have a proven track record of focusing on the task at hand and making decisions. I have considerable energy and drive and can hit the ground running. Basically, I am what you see is what you get type of person. Straight talking and willing to stand up and be counted. I'm confident to challenge and happy to be challenged. Please give me or consider me for one of your votes. Thank you.
That was really impressive. The candidates, I think, almost all managed to keep their opening speeches within the 3-minute mark. Let's hope that the successful deputies will bring the same concision to their speeches in the States Chamber. There's a hope. So we're now going to take 3 questions from the floor. There are some microphones roving around, and the candidates are going to answer questions in groups of 3, beginning, I believe, with Guy, who started us off, and working down the table. So could I have hands up, please, for questions to the candidates? I'll go first to our eminent timekeeper in the front.
Do the candidates believe that the civil service or quangos are a better means of delivering public services to the community?
Thank you very much. Very concise. Another question. I guess the lady just behind the microphone holder. Thank you. So there are 2 ladies. Yes, we'll take you both.
Hi there, Kelly Langdon. I just wanted to ask, with education being so prevalent in the next generation, now learning in schools all in around St Helier, what are the candidates' opinions on education and what will they do to ensure that life skills will be taught to pupils in the future?
Thank you.
Thank you, Janice Eden. I'd like to ask the prospective candidates how they see the makeup of the states within the next 4 years. To be honest, the government that's going out hasn't done a particularly good job, and if it is time to reform the states, how do they want to see it? Should the constable stay? Should the bailiff stay? Should we have super constituencies? I would really be interested in your views. Thank you.
Thank you very much. 3 very good opening questions. Civil service or quangos, education and life skills, and the makeup of the states. And we start with Guy.
Right, I'll try and rattle through these. I was dismayed when I suddenly saw these quangos popping up. Andy in Ports of Jersey, Visit Jersey. Apart from anything else, I considered they were a jolly handy excuse for ministers to give up responsibility for important aspects of our economy that they should be responsible for. It's now conveniently handed over to boards. And by the way, you don't realise probably how much these people are paid. Chairman of a board is on about 40,000 a year. The non-executive director is 10,000 a year. Chuck in the services of a chief executive. Every one of these outfits, you're looking at over £100,000 of your money one way or another. And people are saying, oh, fortunately, we don't have politicians involved. I think they should be. Education, I have to say, I think it's a con at the moment. We keep comparing ourselves to standards in the United Kingdom, completely overlooking it. In fact, the United Kingdom is somewhere around 15 in standards of education across Europe. We need a real good look at education and a thorough shake-up. As for the make-up of the states, I've been absolutely appalled by the attempts of reform. The latest one, which amazingly states members approved, has handed over total authority to the Chief Minister and the Chief Executive Officer. When I was a minister, you used to be in charge of your department. No, you're not. Now you have to report to the Chief Minister who's in charge of everything. I think it's a very serious backward step. And I'll say this one thing. If I am elected as a deputy, I will be a deputy turkey who will be happy to vote for senatorial Christmas.
I spent 6 years on the Appointments Commission, so I can tell you that quangos are very large, like the ports, and very small, like Jersey Consumer Council, which I think has 1 full-time member of staff and some volunteers. It would be extremely difficult to get through all the tasks that the quangos do with civil servants. It would be more expensive. We would have more civil servants. A lot of the quangos have volunteers. Think of what used to be the Jersey District Nursing Association, but is now Jersey Family Nursing. So quangos help us, but they do need to be regulated. It's not true that the chief executives, all of them, are paid $400,000 a year.
Yeah, I said 40, not
40, sorry. Well, some of them are paid a lot more than that, actually. So quangos are necessary. It would be very difficult to do them with civil servants. Next question. Education. One of the things that we need is lifelong learning. Have I used the whole 90? Oh, no, 60, thanks. Lifelong learning. You see quite a lot of people getting shaken out of jobs at the age of 50. We don't have anything which does much for them. We need some method of retraining. We all need to be motivated to do something useful. Another 30? No, sorry. Thank you.
Oh, right, the civil service, I think that really the states would be better running more services. I think there's far better conditions for workers when the states are running them. And I think we have to question the data. Who is actually making this data? Who is got interest in it? And is it reliable? That's the first thing about whether the quangos are better. I think that the whole thing needs to be carefully analysed. For education, Jersey is a wealthy island. We only spend 2.6 of our GDP on education. We need more specialist teachers, we need more support classes for staff, and we need better PHSE classes which focus on real life skills, resilience for young people, about mortgages, that sort of thing. And as for states reform, I think we need one type of states member with equal constituencies. The bailiff should be taken out of the states and the constable should be taken out as well. It's not equitable, the current system. Thank you.
Before we carry on, can I just ask the microphone holder to take a seat, because you're going to be in the way of the video. Thank you. You might be feature. Thank you.
Darius's question. Quangos. Thank you. Quangos, are they any better for the community? I would say there are pros and cons of both. Yes, they do take away some work from states members. On the other hand, where are the checks and balances? So I don't know if you're counting the SOJDC amongst this, but some very dodgy accounting going on there. We are not finding out what's happening. An awful lot of money has just been thrown at it. We need to find out what they are. So I think there's room for a halfway house. Education. Well, I used to be a teacher and I was on my high horse even then. For example, when I was teaching IT, I used to go on about how the curriculum was not fit for purpose. What we were teaching them did not help them in other lessons, didn't help them after school. So I used to run after school clubs to make up for that fact. Education needs to be lifelong. There are plenty of adults around who want to retrain. We need to make that much easier for them. And the makeup of the states, I don't believe it's working as it is. I'm not going to pronounce on exactly how it should be because I've not worked within states. All I can see is it's not working. I would like to see maybe a move back towards committee system, but not exactly as it was, with a few revisions there. I don't like all the power being with one minister. Thank you.
Okay, like Jackie, my own view is that it really depends whether it's civil service or quango. It depends on which one. There's some excellent civil service departments, but there are also some excellent quangos. However, my problem with the quangos are they're not accountable. When the states, for example, made the ports of Jersey free, it stopped states members asking questions about it. If we ask about Visit Jersey, if we ask about the other quangos that have happened, you can't raise the matter in the states. What happens is it's the shareholder executive. Only the Treasury Minister can speak to them, and they don't give us any answers anyway. The salaries of some of the people are extremely high. It's not 40,000. One, I won't mention which one, but it's £240,000 a year. But okay, Ports of Jersey. If you look at the states, the bailiff is £370,000 a year. You know, are we getting value for the people that we have there? And I might add that I like the Ports of Jersey director. I'll say that now. I think he does a good job. However, let me come to education. I mentioned in my speech about artificial intelligence, machine learning, and also robotics. It's estimated that over the next 5, 10, 20 years maximum, 45% of all jobs as we know them will be replaced. It's a major sort of wave that's coming our way, a tsunami. And the point is, we need to start making preparation for it now. It's already here. You're not aware of the fact that in some of the banking firms, it's already in place. Have I gone over time? Yeah. Okay, sorry about that. As far as the state's concerned, read my manifesto, please.
For the first question, I think that we can all agree the changes are necessary. The reconstruction of the public services, the reconstruction how the state members speak with the public service, the accountability. And I'm coming from business consultant. For me, basically, we need to cut off the duplication of services. There's lots of duplication and lots of money going wrong directions than to be used to education purposes, for example. And moving to the education, I would like to mention 3 points. First, I think we need to really look very well at our primary education, where it all starts, from the 2-year-old, when the children started to go to nursery. And we need equality of opportunities for everybody. They need to have equal start. I spoke with school assistant, and you know, in St. Helier primary schools, we have sometimes almost 50% bilingual children. And this should change. Mature person grant, people who would like in their 30s to get another education and to start a new career, and it is important. And going to the third question, I know that I only have 10 seconds left. I think regarding if our constables in states, if deputies in states, the only thing that I know, we need to have fair representations of all residents or from all parishes or from the island in the states. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Darius. Quangos, like Jackie Carroll, I believe there are pros and cons for both. One Quango, if you like, that is delivering quality housing is Angium Homes. Now, you look back and see when is the last time that new housing came up to the specification that they are delivering. It's been too long doing so, but it's starting to happen. What we need to what we have to focus on is once we deliver the amounts needed, and there's a huge amount in the pipeline, rents, and they're too high. And we need to focus that as the next situation. When I first joined the States, I was a member of the Public Accounts Committee, and I was the one that exposed I don't know whether you remember the film grant for Can Be Done. Huge amount of money went towards this, and it never materialised. I'm against grants for private individuals. If we give a low interest loan, then fine, but grants as a whole, no. Now, other Quangos, what I am against is the ridiculous amount of bonuses some of these people get. And it is crazy. JEC, Jersey Development Company. And unfortunately, this was due to contract set up from a long time ago. Janice, I'm going to have to speak to you separately about that because that is half an hour to explain what you've asked. But we'll do it over a cup of coffee. Thank you. Sorry.
The advantage of being in a political party is that my colleague Julian knows so much more about Quangos than I do, so I would go to him for advice, and I will ask you to accept his answer as the one that I would come up with. In terms of education, a while ago when I was teaching, every teacher in the island was trained in delivering critical skills. It was a very expensive initiative, and it taught the students teamwork, it taught them to work in groups on goal-oriented learning. They were learning for themselves. Unfortunately, so many teachers throw the baby out with the bathwater. They neglected the 3 R's, and there was a backlash, and that backlash is absolutely dreadful. It's led to didactic teaching, whereby a child who's writing a poem can't get the highest mark unless it contains a fronted adverbial, a colon, a use of the passive, and so it has got absolutely ridiculous. It's very deadening. We need to follow the Finnish system where teachers are highly trained, well respected, and know how to deliver a proper education. In terms of the makeup of government, it is broken. We had a Clothier report and we cherry-picked it. We should accept Clothier in its entirety is my short answer. The constables should go. The fact that we've only got one constable election this time really speaks for itself. Constables who want to be in the state should stand as deputies as well. Thank you.
I'm also absolutely in favour of political reform. It is essential to remove the constables from the states. We need a robust and well-contested political model to support the flawed, untenable system which we currently have. We need more fairer elections, we need more open elections, and we need more competitive elections. But the question revolved around the bailiff and whether the bailiff should remain in the states. And I understand that they are in the process of having a referendum as to whether the bailiff should be in the states. Now, in my eyes, they're putting the cart before the horse, because if they remove the bailiff, then it's very probable that one of the constables would replace him. And of course, most of the constables are unelected. So I do not believe that having a referendum is a viable way forward. And I think it should be left to a future state sitting whereby we have equal number of votes for equal number of deputies, and the proposal to have districts with 5 or 6 deputies being elected from each of them is the right way forward. Thanks very much.
I'll start from the back and go forward. I would keep the constables in the states myself, because I think that they actually represent the parish that they live in. And I know everybody says that they're not voted for, but nobody stops anybody from standing against the constable. So therefore it is what it is. You could have somebody in any parish, in whether it be St Helier, St Wands, St Mary's, where only the certain amount of candidates attend, numbers is one person turns up. So I don't agree with that. I do think, however, that there should be the same amount of constituents for each deputy. So you divide the island up, so 100,000 people, hypothetically, say 25 deputies, they'd have 4,000 people each, as simple as that. I don't know how you'd work it, but I think that it should be divided up into constituents so that one person had the same amount of constituents as all the others. In relation to the bailiff, I am from an old traditional Jersey family, so I don't have strong views to remove the bailiff from the States Chamber, and it's not a matter that I've sort of thought over a long time, and probably if I was to vote it, I would say for them not to go. They do the job, they do a good job, they're paid to do a job, they do both jobs. So effectively, what you're saying is you're going to split that person's job. So I'm not quite sure what you're going to give them for the other half of their time, but that's basically my opinion. Sorry, I didn't have time for the education.
Yeah, thank you very much for those first 3 questions. Don't feel you have to hold back if you want to ask anything which affects the parish of St Helier or the constable. You know, be as rude as you like, because I'm going to be impartial. I hope my body language won't betray anything. So let's have 3 more questions, please. Yeah, the gentleman in the blue shirt.
Hi, Andy Truscott. The current world at the moment is experiencing a high pollution of plastic. It is a global phenomenon at the moment, and Jersey relies on its clean, healthy beaches, and the fishermen also depend on clean oceans around Jersey to make a living. Now, where do the candidates see the government of Jersey on the global scale making a difference, and how does each candidate feel towards making a difference on plastic pollution?
Thank you very much. Another question. Let's go over this side. We haven't had many people over there. Yes, that lady with her hand up.
Candidates have talked about population, but what controls would you put in place considering the cost of the aging population that faces us?
Yeah, controls on population. And a third question over here. Yes, gentleman, the other timekeeper. Yes, there's a microphone on its way to you, I think. Just behind you, it's coming forward.
I've proposed an exciting opportunity to deck over the lower park and create a bigger 5-acre park over Victoria Avenue, unimpeded by the Victoria Avenue. It'll be tranquil and relaxing, 5-acre space, and underneath there'll be over 750 spaces for cars to park coming from the west. They won't have to go into town to look for parking. They'll come in and go out the same way they came. Would the candidates support such an initiative to create 5 acres of recreational space on the waterfront?
Thank you very much. So we have 3 questions. Plastic-free Jersey, question mark, population control and how to go about it, and the Lower Park scheme to increase parking and build over Victoria Avenue. And we start with Julian.
Thank you. I think all remember the potato leachate problem about 10 years ago, was it? 20 years ago. So old I am. 20 years ago. And we dealt with it on an ad hoc basis. You can see us having problems getting rid of the seaweed on the beaches. Again, ad hoc basis. We don't seem to have a control of what might come next. Plastic is a new thing, but there's plenty of it around. I think that we need to have a more joined-up policy, possibly with ministerial responsibility for really being aware of what might happen rather than just what's hitting us at the moment. Population control. If we continue to allow people to come in, we are going to have to build more houses. If we don't build more houses, rents will go up, the cost of housing will go up. It's really simple stuff. So we have to decide, are we going to allow the population to increase, which has some advantages in terms of bringing funding into the island, but if so, are we going to build more houses? If we're not, then of course it makes life considerably more unpleasant economically for everybody who lives here. I personally feel that we should restrict population to possibly 110, and not allow, thank you, and take care of the business of people who are working for us because they need to be here at least temporarily. Is that my whole time, or have I? Thank you.
Hello. Well, we need to reduce the use of single-use plastics. We need to involve education to a much greater extent. As a teacher, we need to be starting in primary schools, secondary schools, schemes to involve young people in better practices about not just throwing things away, like plastic bottles all the time, reusing reusable containers. We also need to explore renewable energy, and we need to have education actually for all sections of the community to stop. When I did a recent beach clean, there was such a range of debris all over West Park and Elizabeth Castle. It was quite shocking. So the whole community needs to be, maybe shops could give a reward for collecting plastics back. Immigration, we need stricter control, we need more licenses, and we need much more local training. For example, I'm involved in my job at UCJ in devising a local social work degree. If we can provide training for people who are already here to fill vacancies, that would be helpful. The People's Gardens project, well, it's going to need more planning permission, investigation of the covenant. Is there a loan? And planning and finance, and obviously the parish assembly would need to be consulted. I am aware of the plan from my work at WATCA, but it needs far more discussion at the parish level. Thank you.
First of all, Andy's question about plastics pollution. I've been banging on about plastics for a long time. Those of you who've seen me on TV or heard me on the radio or seen my JEP articles will see that I've been quite anti a lot of plastics, single-use plastics really, and microbeads. I was talking about plastics in bottles though, back from the 80s, when we first started looking at the effects of the xenoestrogens inside them. So it's not just the pollution that the fish are eating and then we're eating the fish, but it's also the plastics which acts like hormone replacers going into your body and contributing to a lot of the ill health we see at the moment. So we really do need strict government policy. We can be world leaders. We're a small island, so we can get single-use plastics banned, but at the same time, teach people how to replace these with better things. Population, yeah, it's getting a bit big. I'm not sure about the cost of the elderly. I think it's just as costly to have younger people as well. You know, the elderly do a lot of things. In fact, they help out. My mum looked after my children when I was at school. You know, when I was teaching, not when I was at school. We need to be looking around the world at population policies that work, like in Australia. Their point system works. So, what is the effect of on the older population? The 5-acre park. When I first had a look at it, and I did go on TV. That was it, was it? Yeah, good thought. No, that's good.
Okay, plastic. Well, first of all, it's all our responsibility. Every one of us has got to do our bit. And I think if you think of plastic bags, we all cut back, I hope, on plastic bags when we had to pay a few extra pence to get one. The idea of plastic bottles, yes, we all use them. Maybe we should pay a deposit for it. Maybe we should pay slightly more for this to deal with it, dispose of it. Maybe we should get biodegradable bottles. Anyone who saw the Blue Planet programme knows we've got to do something. I hadn't realised it was so bad. I don't think any of us did. As far as population is concerned, I feel very strongly about work permits based on a points-based system. You can never stop immigration. I came here as an immigrant 41 years ago, and I hope that I've actually added to the community and helped people. So we need to look at who comes in, what they do, and the restrictions we bring in. But we've got to do something. We're overcrowded now. The roads are too congested. And we know about housing, etc. As far as the lower park was concerned, I've seen Steve's proposals, and I actually support it. We've got to use our land better, and we can accomplish a number of things, even though we may have less cars on the road with automatic ones. But the point is, we can make the land better used. So I will support it. Thank you.
And I will start from your question, Steve. I would support your park, and I have seen the plans. And I also looked at the statistics, and in 2011, it's all statistics, but they're still statistics, we have 20,000 cars coming every day into St. Helier, and they need to park somewhere. It will be much better for parking in St. Helier and much better for environment and pollution in St. Helier if the cars will be parked in underground parking and everybody will come by shuttle to St. Helier. Second question, it's about immigration. As you know, I'm an immigrant. I can be called an immigrant. But I love this island, and I do contribute this island, and I have my permanent home on this island. We have 52% of our populations are immigrants. And I do think we need to have very thought through immigration policy. We need to understand what our needs, where we would like to see ourselves in 5 years, and who are local people we need to train, and who we need to allow to come to the island and contribute to the island. So it should be really considered policy. And regarding plastics, I think this can be the answer. I don't want to see much plastics around. I would like to go plastic-free, please. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to try and whiz through these. I was delighted to attend the Plastic-Free Jersey event last week, and the dedication of those people involved is incredible. Now, they need our support, and they've got my support in enhancing the whole thing. It starts with a lot of simple things like plastic straws. We can have paper ones. Let's get that message out, and we'll add more and more things on the way. But the good thing is it's supported by Geraldine from the State of Jersey as well, and they're helping to lead on this. So I think things will be done. We need to negotiate with supermarkets, things like that. Population work permits, I've always supported and fought for. I'm frustrated to high heaven that we haven't been able to implement them. I've always been told it's against human rights. I'm sorry, I do not agree with that. When we were on the farm in the early days, we had some fantastic people working, 9 months. They went back to Poland for their break, see their families. And do you know what? they've actually built fantastic homes for themselves over what they saved over here. So that we should maintain and bring that back in. Steve's car park thing, in principle, it's fantastic. I want to see parking, private parking like that, outside of the ring road, so that we have more room for cycling and thing. On education, very quickly, which I didn't answer before, I was governor at Rouge-Bouillon School. When I went there to sit in various classes, I was gobsmacked at the politeness and dedication of the pupils there. It was fantastic. The issue is the parents have got so much work going on and work at night. You know, we'll carry on. Sorry about that.
Hello. Yes, plastic pollution is clearly a serious issue and we have to do something about it. And I read an article in The Guardian recently where somebody tried to live plastic-free for a week and found it virtually impossible because we are actually at the mercy of UK suppliers. But having said that, we were the ones that led the way in charging for plastic bags here. So I think there are initiatives we could take, like making sure that fruit and vegetables, we have paper bags that we could put the fruit and veg in. I think that we could have drinking fountains round so we could have reusable plastic bottles, and I think we do need to make a start on this. And I know some of our members attended your session that I was unable to, but I will certainly ask them for any ideas that came from that. We would like to have subsidies for environmentally friendly farming, and we're interested in regenerative agriculture, which might do something about the seaweed problem, the sea lettuce problem, in which case Mr. Beddoes' proposition would be even more attractive, because I think a park leading onto a smelly seaweedy beach is less attractive than another one. I would have to look at a feasibility study on that if I'm in the States. It seems a very grandiose scheme, but still worth looking at. In terms of immigration, there is a target of inward migration of 350, I think. We've had 1,000 coming in year on year. We would introduce the Guernsey scheme, whereby unskilled workers would have to leave after 5 years, and it's in our manifesto that we would adhere to population targets.
Thank you very much, Andy, for your question on plastics. Obviously, I touched on it in my original speech, and I'm very concerned about this problem, especially, obviously, plastic pollution. Plastic straws has been mentioned, and plastic cotton buds. There are like 40 billion cotton buds being thrown away, and a lot of them are ending up in our oceans, and they're a real nuisance, and we need to find ways of replacing them with alternative sorts of buds for those who need them. We have to reduce plastic food wrapping as well. There's a great deal of food wrapping that is not really necessary, but people get used to it. And of course that's causing a great deal of problems. And even the plastic bags, although we've reduced our plastic bags, there are other ways of carrying foods around with other sort of string bags or such like, and of course it's affecting the fishing industry as well. So I'm totally for all policy which reduces plastic. On the population front, I am for work permits. I think work permits are a good idea. They've worked in the past, and I believe that they can work again. But I would not be in favour of ID cards. I think that there would be a financial burden on having ID cards, so I'm against that. But obviously, if the population increases by 1,000 people a year, which currently it is, this only means that we have to build 1,000 new homes per year, and I don't think that's a viable option. Thanks very much.
In relation to pollution and plastics, I think as an island we can decide what we do or don't bring in. So therefore, if we decide as an island that we don't want to have plastic straws, then we can not have them brought in. So I think we can follow the UK, and I think Scotland as well is looking at that by the end of 2019, I think it is, to have no straws. And okay, so we can start off on sort of the smaller things, something like straws, and then reducing the packaging on all fruit and vegetables. If you go into your small shops, then a lot of the time they don't have everything in packaging. And I suppose the thing is that if you don't buy the things in packaging, then people might then take the point that that might be the way forward. In relation to the population, I agree and approve the idea of having work permits. Obviously, coming from a farming family, there was work permits going back many, many years, and they worked very, very well. People came into the island for short periods of time, made money, built their houses, etc., etc. I'm in favour of that. But I do think that we need to look at how we're going to manage and be able to get the resources that we need for the jobs that are available. And I think that comes down to the education of our population as a whole. So therefore, if you're in a business and you're working in a bank, for example, and there's a certain skill that's required, then the businesses should be able to provide those facilities so those people can get trained up to do the jobs where we need people to do them.
I'm sorry to advise, Steve, I reserve judgment on the Steve Beddoe car park and gardens. I rather think we're going to end up with very large Marine View apartments down there. Accommodation for residents will be more important than parking cars. I'd support local initiatives on dealing with plastic, but let's not forget, we import it all. So the major change is going to come when manufacturers of all the various plastic products that we bring into the island make the change from wherever they manufacture, UK and across Europe and other places in the world. Now, let's just get a grip on population growth. You've heard candidates talking about work permits. That's all very well, but playing with immigration is simply not going to sort the issue. Even if we get immigration down to zero, we now have so many people in this island that the birth rate is over 250 a year. And we can't stop immigration because it's absolutely vital, not just for agriculture and the hospitality industry, but also for financial services. So we still have this problem. Now, I've yet to hear a solution, but I have put one forward in the vote.je pamphlet, and if you haven't read it, I'll remind you of it now. After the war, we encouraged families. Jersey was depopulated. Now it isn't. It's now against the public interest to have large families, so I'm simply saying this will affect no one, but in, say, a year down the line, first child gets full child benefits, second child gets 50% because you've already bought the pram and the buggy. But after that, you take full responsibility for any future children you have. This isn't a China one-child policy. Have as many as you can, but make sure you can afford to have them.
Thank you. I think the candidates were slightly less good at keeping to their 90 seconds than the first time around. Let's hope in the next cycle of questions they revert to their former abilities. So let's have 3 more questions. I'm going to start with the gentleman at the front who generously gave his question to Mr. Beddoe.
Thank you, Constable. Just slide it up or down.
It's like the town hall microphones.
Thank you, Mr. Constable. My question is this: given that the report of the historic abuse investigation vindicated virtually everything that the two said, would the candidates support a proposal that the states make a formal apology to the former Chief of Police, Mr. Graham Power, and the former Senator Stuart Sivray?
Thank you. If you didn't hear that, should the states make a formal apology to the former Chief Officer of the States of Jersey Police, Mr. Power, and Senator Sivray, in the wake of the findings of the independent care inquiry? Thank you. The second question, I saw Mr. Baker at the back.
Thank you. Yes, John Baker. On the subject of constables in the states and parish democracies, And can I say, first of all, I want to say that our own constable represents us very well in the parish and in the States. So no slur on him as a constable, he's excellent. But we've got to face the facts, and I think probably over the next 4 years there's going to be moves to get the senators changed and certainly the constables out of the States. Now that could lose St Helier some influence in the States. I mean, our constable represents about 33,000 people, which is a considerable amount more than any other constable by a long shot. What do the candidates think they would be prepared to do in terms of backing an idea to improve the democracy of the parish of St Helier, which might then develop into other parishes, to change the system of the parish, to introduce a parish council, and that council would comprise elected members from community groups, so that we have more democracy in the parish in terms of the contact and discussion between the public groups through a democratic process of a council, and then that council could perhaps take some of the powers back from the government to the parish itself. So situations, as was mentioned earlier, about paying for parish parks and things like this, you know, we could force the government to look after our homes a lot better. So what do you, if you get in as deputies, think about the idea of a parish council?
Thank you very much. And another short question. The gentleman here in the red T-shirt. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Andy. I moved to Jersey from the UK 5 years ago, but I see a lot of people my age or younger leaving Jersey to live in the UK or other countries. So what would you do as deputies to provide more incentives and ways for people my age and younger to stay in Jersey and help deal with the skills gap and the brain drain? Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Very concise question. I'll just repeat those three questions. The first question is, should the states apologise to Mr. Power and Senator Sivray, or former Senator Sivray, in the wake of findings of the Jersey Care Inquiry? What could we do to improve parish democracy? Is a municipal or town council the way forward? And Andy asks, what incentives will the candidates make for young people to stay in Jersey and avoid the skills gap and brain drain? And we start with Mary.
Hello. Yes, I definitely think there should be a full apology to Senator Sivray for the way he was treated, for the way he highlighted abuse, negative practices, how it was swept under the carpet for many years. I think the treatment that Stuart received was disgraceful. I think that Mr. Power should have an apology as well. And fortunately, it has led to a review of practice. And if I was to be elected, one of my chief objectives would be to see the implementation of the care inquiry to make sure children's homes are inspected on a regular basis, that there's outside observers, that looked after children and received proper care, that foster parents get proper support. It is a serious concern to me, and thank goodness that Stuart highlighted it. The constable as well, I think at the moment our constable only has one vote, and he's representing 30,000 people. The one from St Mary's is representing about 1,500. It's not fair at the moment, so I think we should have equal constituencies with the same just deputies, perhaps not constables or senators. I think equal constituencies. And to stop young people leaving, we need cheaper rents and better contracts, less 0 hours contracts, less insecure fixed term contracts. So we need people who are here with skills to stay and maintain the economy.
Absolutely, they should have full apologies. Backing ideas for parish council. I think a parish council is a very good idea. I think Simon, however, should head it, or whoever stands in as Connétable in following elections. I like the idea of being elected from community groups, but the first thing we need to do is find out what exactly is it we want from a parish assembly. Then you can start filling in the gaps with the people and the different skills. As for keeping young people in Jersey, Andy, I can't tell how old you are.
27.
27, yeah. So, 30s and under, there is a bit of a brain drain, but a lot of people go out and come back when they're older, having gained a lot of skills in Europe or in UK. The thing is to be able to entice them back. Housing is a huge issue. We need just a total shake-up of our education system. We've got to be able to allow people to have education all their lives, and we really, really do need to be doing a lot more vocational education over here and more degrees. I'm watching Darius nod, and I don't know if I've run out of time or not. So, absolutely, we need to support young people staying here.
Thank you. I would ask people to have a look at the brochure. I spent most of my time in the States fighting for the independent care inquiry and for exposing many of the abuses and cover-ups that have been. I fought for Graham Power, who was suspended, I believe, wrongly. And what I would say about that is it took me 6 years to get the States to release the secret in-camera transcript of the debate, which showed that basically the suspension was based on lies. Quite simply, they wanted to get rid of him for political reasons. Stuart Sivray, he was right to raise the things he did. I didn't always agree with his method of doing it, and I like Stuart very much, but he was right, and he exposed an awful lot, and the toll on him has been terrible. They have destroyed him. They used secret trials. Did you know he was tried? States members, we didn't know. We don't know what it cost. They wouldn't tell us anything, and that was on data protection. In the UK, they've had secret trials to do with terrorism. In Jersey, we had one where 4 people gave evidence against him, the most unlikely people, by the way, who gave evidence against him, and he was fined and he was jailed. The actual way that he was treated was criminal, and he should get an apology. As far as constables in the States are concerned, again, you'll see my views about constables in the States, and I can tell you it's been one of the most frustrating things to see that on virtually every proposition, it's normally 10 constables out of 12 will vote to the Council of Ministers. And as far as young people are concerned, we need you. We've got to upskill, but very importantly, we've got to deal with the housing situation for the people who are here. Thank you.
For your question, I read the inquiry, but I honestly don't know knowledge. And this is the reason about this Miss Power and Surrey. And I will ask you to come to me, give me your telephone number. I will look into this and I will answer you personally, and I will put the answer on my innergardiner.com and on my Facebook page that everybody can see the answer. I would like to answer having full knowledge of it. Regarding council, parish council, I do think for 1/3 of the population, the workforce of the island should have a say. It can be as a parish council, or we need to have all deputies standing behind the constable when we are pushing parish matters in the States. We need to have our own say and strong one in the government. Regarding the young people, I would divide it into 3 levels. First, affordable housing. Second, contracts. Third, diversity in economy. I've heard that we have it's not only finance, it can be digital, it can be small businesses. We need to support our young adults coming back and to contribute to the islands, giving them all possible opportunities to be here and to give back to the island. Thank you.
Thank you. What I do know of the care inquiry that Mike has done an enormous amount of work beforehand for it and exposing what's happened. It is the case that if it is the case that they are absolutely not guilty, which is, I believe, the situation, then the next Chief Minister should issue an apology on behalf of the State of Jersey. John Baker, Parish Council, in principle, I think it's a great idea. I would need to know how you envisage it would work and what powers we could implement to help the parish of St Helier achieve much more. Unfortunately, the last few years, there's been a disconnect between DFI and the parish, and we could have done so much more. And we're proud of what's been going on at Charing Cross and other areas. Skills back young. Listen, we should celebrate the ageing population. Everybody's getting older, fantastic, but it's going to be at a huge cost. So we need young people, and I've got 3 young children, and we need to encourage them to come back from university to work over here and educate the skill. Digital Jersey, things like that, I think that's a good thing, and we need more of that. Thank you.
Thank you. On the care inquiry, I defer to Mike's superior knowledge. He obviously knows a lot about this. It is our policy to implement the recommendations of the care inquiry in full. Yes. Yes. In terms of giving more powers to St Helier, again, it's in our manifesto that we want a democratic local council with enhanced powers. We want conseillers directly elected in a public election with bylaw making powers and enhanced powers for infrastructure, business licences, planning and public entertainment. In terms of keeping young people here, yes, we need to have a more diverse economy with more opportunities, but particularly we need to make housing affordable. And our policy is to cap Andean rents while we seek to reduce all rents to enable young people to save for a deposit on a house. And I have a notion that we could set up a system like the one they have in Spain where you could save money tax-free, put that into a bank account, and if you spent it on a deposit for a house within 5 years, you wouldn't have to pay any tax on that, and that might help people to buy their own homes.
With reference to the comment about the constables earlier on, everyone said, oh, the constables, nobody stands against the constables, and therefore they deserve to be elected to the State's Assembly. But of course, that is the same for the centenaires and the vingtenaires. We can have elections for these positions, but nobody ever stands for them. So does that mean that they possibly should be elected to the states as well, unopposed? Improving the democracy of the parish. Of course, parish councils sounds like a wonderful idea. Unfortunately, for those of us who attend the parish meetings, I'm sure the constable knows, they are not incredibly well attended. There is a great deal of apathy. There is a great deal of apathy. I know Mr. Baker obviously often attends. I see him there regularly. But the idea, I think, is a very good one. But whether it would actually take place or not, I'm not too sure. Andy, yeah, unfortunately, the youth of Jersey are leaving. My own daughter in the same situation. She went to university and she came back for a short period, but unfortunately, because of the cost of housing, the difficulty finding suitable employment, she ended up going to London and living there, just like many before her. So I understand your concerns. Thank you very much.
I'm going to start with the third question first. What I would say is that I think we need to encourage all of the young people that go away to university or come to live in Jersey to fill the gaps to stay. I think that in actual fact, when you look at it, quite often, if you go away to university and you qualify as a nurse or a teacher, the saying always is, well, come back when you've got the experience. They don't want you to come back until they say you've got experience. Now, I would say that we need to, as an island, facilitate those individuals to come back and give them experience. If that means by supporting them, to be able to say come back into being a nurse, for example, and if that means by then supporting them to have secondments to other places in order to get that experience, that's what we should be doing. As a police officer, that's what we used to do. I spent 6 months in Edinburgh on a secondment to gain experience, and that's what we should be doing. We should be encouraging people to stay and to come back. In relation to the housing, we need to look at how housing can be affordable for those people, and if that means trusts and shared ownership, then that's what we need to look at. So I think those things are very valuable indeed. Thank you.
In respect of the child inquiry, well, I was there when it all happened. And the phrase, "this is an open checkbook," came from me, because I said simply, we can't put a budget on this. I would certainly consider an apology for Mr. Power. I'd need more convincing about the former Senator Sivray, because he cast numerous allegations and aspersions against many people, and then, I stand to be corrected, and then failed to give any evidence to the inquiry. So I reserve judgment on that. I very much admire this young gentleman here who's prepared to live in the old people's home that Jersey is steadily becoming. I'd strongly suggest to him, at his age, you're better off getting out and enjoying the rest of the world before it all gets dramatically changed in one way or another. But I do have a game plan for bright young graduates who ultimately want to come back to Jersey. And for those who didn't get their fees paid, I would be proposing that they got a tax rebate until they got all their money back, and hopefully that might give them an incentive. Lastly, parish councils. Yeah, you're having a laugh, aren't you? When I was Minister of Transport, I was trying to run the roads in this island, and I had to deal with 12 parish roads committees. It was a complete nightmare. Local councils would want to do their local planning applications. I mean, it would just be completely out of hand, and I can guarantee you it'll all end up with little cliques controlling how the parish spends its rates. No way, thank you very much.
Thank you for the question about Grandpa and Stuart Sivray. I remember this situation well, and I remember feeling slightly uncomfortable about it. I think probably an apology would be in order. So yes. Connotables in the States. It's actually in our manifesto, and Anne's already dealt with it. But I thought you might like to know that we've thought of a nice French name for it. And you'll have to pardon my pronunciation. Conseil municipal de Saint-Helier. So, a town council, yes, because the power, not just to deal with the roads, but the power to deal with other ways in which the parish spends money, the power to challenge, if necessary, what happens by way of planning, because there are two different interpretations about what happens to some of our roads, would be a very useful thing to have. Young people, congratulations on being here. One of the things I think that might be useful, lifelong learning is normally meant to mean old people like me. But if you've come back from university and are taking a job and want to work your way up, there's a very high chance that you want to take further qualifications. I think you should be assisted towards that, and there isn't machinery for assisting second degrees, but I think there should be. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, I've got through 9 questions now. There's not really time to do another 3 each, but I was going to suggest that if the candidates could restrict their answers to 60 seconds, we could take 2 more questions, and that would get us to 9 o'clock quite comfortably. If the timekeepers can adjust their clocks. Everyone happy with that? There's a hand up at the back. Let's take that question. Right over in the corner.
Good evening. My name is Jason Cronin. I'm the branch secretary of the Jersey Nursing Association. Last Wednesday in the town hall, 300 public sector nurses went to a rally. They're outraged. They feel betrayed that the day before workforce modernisation was rolled out in November, some allied healthcare professionals were upgraded in their civil service grades, which means that work for equal value equal pay for equal value, has not been achieved. Nurses are now currently in some grades, say a ward sister, compared to a social worker job, paid the same in the UK, is £8,000 a year under. Now this happened in secret. When we challenged this in December, we were told it's to do with a child abuse inquiry, which had nothing to do with it, because CAMS, which is a child and adolescent mental health service, are 45% below establishment and only seeing the very urgent cases. So it's been in the Bailiwick Express, but not much exposure in other medias, because we find that we can't seem to get it out there. What do you understand about the nursing situation in Jersey, and what would you be prepared to do about it? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the chap I was pointing at in the corner, you still want to ask a question? Yeah. Okay.
Hello, my name is Christopher Callahan, and I represent a local startup in your district, Jersey Hemp. I'd like to know your opinions on renewable energies in the creation of renewable energy in the island, and would you consider burning biomass from hemp to generate electricity?
Thank you very much. Those are our two questions. One is on nurses' pay and conditions in the light of the recent public meeting, and the second one is not specifically about hemp, I think, but just renewable energy for the island and biomass and so on. And we start with Jackie. 60 seconds.
I couldn't attend the nursing things. I was downstairs at the plastics thing instead, but we did hear you very loud and clear. And frankly, I've been appalled that you were even put into this position. The state of our nursing is parlous. I mean, in terms of how good they feel about themselves and how many gaps we have got to fill. It doesn't appear to be a meritocracy anymore with our services. It does really need to be there. Something that bothers me, when nurses come over, their partners can't always get a job that is good for their qualifications, and therefore they can't really afford to live here. So they go back to England. We need to look at that. Startups, renewable energy. I'm a very staunch environmentalist. I do need to look at all these different renewables, cost by cost. For example, we say, well, let's use paper bags. And that is my minute. I could carry on all day about that, so I'll bow out now.
Can I say, first of all, the states are an appalling employer. We've treated our workforce for years very, very badly. The idea of secret payments, playing one worker off against another, I know it happens in the private sector as well, but it's absolutely disgraceful for the states. We should be treating our workforce with respect. I'll give you another example of how the states is a bad employer. States people who get into trouble and go before some sort of tribunal or whatever within the system are denied natural justice. Again, if you look at the manifesto here, I helped Dr. Amal Al-Witri, who was a consultant, I can't even pronounce it, but to do with eyes, who was...
Ophthalmologist.
Yes, thank you. He was recruited into the island 2 weeks before he started, a very, very good consultant who would have been a great boon to the island, and they terminated his employment before he got here. He'd already sold his house in the UK. Now, it's disgraceful how people are sort of dealing with these things. I don't know if that's the end yet. Okay. Okay. Just read the thing, please.
I will start with renewable energy. I lived in the countries where renewable energy was used much wider than it's used in Jersey. At the same time, in Jersey, we need to really consider what's economically value for investment. What we need to invest, what we'll get out of it. And generally, yes, let's look into the details. About nurses, and I think that nurses is one of the examples, but we have unfair payment between men and women, and we can continue going on and on and on about difference in the payment. Transparency and equality for all. You can go to innergardener.com. I have the full page about equality for all. Thank you.
Yeah, renewable energy I'll start with, and I'm fully supportive of any initiation that people can set up themselves, and I think it's commendable. I'm frustrated that the JEC appear to be restricting people from doing what they want, but we've got to keep pushing to try and deal with that. Jason, I was also downstairs and heard and spoke to various nurses and doctors afterwards. It's a no-brainer that there should be equal pay for equal work. I can't understand how they managed to get that in. The state should be setting an example. But we are going to see a worldwide shortage of doctors, nurses and healthcare workers. Unless Jersey can be attractive for them, we're going to lose the very best people we desperately, desperately need. And I want to see St Helier House, which is close to the hospital, be turned into key worker, doctors and nurses accommodation and subsidised so that it encouraged them, because rents are the killer. And I've spoken to a lot when I've been in and out of hospital. They love Jersey, love it, but they need to be able to afford to be here. Thank you.
Yes, I agree that our public sector has been treated appallingly in pay negotiations. The State's Employment Board won't even meet the union representatives, which they need to do. We need to see the whites of their eyes. Nurses, of course, need more pay. With the cost of living over here being so much more expensive than it is in the UK, the pay differentials simply aren't enough. But it isn't right that we're told the economy is picking up, and yet teachers and nurses have seen their pay cut in real terms over the last 10 years by, I think, at least 8%. In terms of renewable energy, I need to learn more about burning biomass, but Reform Jersey representatives have been talking to the JEC about an energy plan which includes insulating homes, supporting ground solar panel installations and negotiating a higher feed-in tariff for renewable energy generation. So yes, we're very much in favour of renewable energy.
Yes, Christopher, yes, I'm very supportive of all new Jersey businesses. All new industries should be encouraged, especially the hemp industry. Renewable energies are vital. I noticed, as been previously mentioned, that the JEC are trying to bring in a standing charge for businesses which use solar energy, as well as a service charge. And I will be doing my best to prevent this from being implemented. Thanks very much.
I was aware of the situation between the different staff and nursing, and it is actually appalling that two separate groups could have been dealt with in different ways. And I think it needs to be looked at by whoever is responsible and to sort out the problem and get it back on track to where it should be. I think in relation to nurses, or medical staff in particular, I think the thing is that we should be training our own nurses, and we should be encouraging them to develop their skills on island as well.
I'm a very enthusiastic supporter of renewable energy. I've been studying it for about 30 years now, and I'm rather coming around to the conclusion that the problem is in fact the JEC, who really don't want to go down that route. They're more interested in making profits for their shareholders. Jason, I think what happened recently was absolutely scandalous, this sort of covert approach. I can assure you I'm always happy to talk to nurses and doctors. And and I think that I would, if elected, this is something I would wish to pursue, because I think we have some very serious issues with the State's Employment Board and how they actually approach employment across our public service. They've been doing the same old thing for a long time, and I think it's no longer fit for purpose.
I think free collective bargaining, which is point 9 on our manifesto, rather precludes the possibility of under-the-counter deals for any workforce. So it certainly shouldn't have happened to the nurses. I also think, because I have family issues where nursing is involved, that we should do as much as we can to make nursing a progressive career here. We tend to bring people in and they then go elsewhere. We don't seem to have a really strong way of them moving from trainee through our system to become senior nurses. That's what we ought to do to make it interesting for them. Biomass, hemp sounds encouraging, but I don't know how you might use that for Jersey at just this moment. However, many other places allow the state electricity company to buy electricity back from home generators for people who have solar panels and so on. I don't see why we shouldn't do that. The only thing I really wouldn't like to see here is wind farms. People think they don't look nice, but it's worse than that. They actually make quite a lot of noise. So wave power, perhaps.
Thank you.
Biomass, perhaps. No wind farms.
Hello. Yeah, the nurses have been treated dreadfully, and Reform's policy is to restore collective bargaining and reopen negotiations over workforce modernisation. As well, I think we ought to increase the funding for our local nurse training schemes and start a training scheme for mental health nurses to do degrees locally, because there's very few of them. With the renewable energy, we need to work closely with the Jersey Electricity to develop renewable energy technologies, wind, solar and tidal powers. And just to go back to the other question that I forgot in the other one, the Parish Council of St Helier, we need a wider knowledge of the parish election system, more synchronised elections and a better online presence about what the role of the parish committees are. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Well, we could have had 3 questions after all, because we've got 10 minutes left. And there's a lady with her hand up just over there. Would you like to ask your question? And we'll give them 30 seconds each to answer it. Just the one question.
We asked a lot of global questions today, but I want to ask a question about some shocking things which was happening in Jersey. And it's a really wealthy island, but the distance between wealthy and poor is so big that some things which can really affect the image of Jersey. For example, we all heard the situation when the child was left in the hospital, and I'm sure that the mother who left this, she was not local. So by the way, my question is, how the candidates going to improve the situation to reach the people who live here, who are underrepresented? And I'm sure that no one from Jersey don't want their children who live in other countries to be in the same situation where they go through the same position. Thank you.
Okay, you have 30 seconds, starting with Mike.
Thank you. I hope I've understood the question. I'm actually appalled at such a wealthy island has such a disparity between those who are doing exceptionally well and the ones who are doing very poorly. I think the idea that we've got food banks in this island is criminal. We should be giving people sufficient money that they can go out and they can afford to feed themselves and their kids. I find it appalling that we've got people having to occupy all the hostels. All the hospitals are totally full. We've got to invest in everybody in this island, whether they're newcomers or from outside. And as I say, we've got to relook at how we run this island and who it's for, not the very rich. Thank you.
If I understood the right question, you mentioned she's not local. And basically, we do have lots of people that are not local. They're newcomers, and I'm one of them. And for me, Many cultures want prosperous community. We need to treat newcomers as a resource and not a burden. And the full inclusion for the society altogether we can be stronger. And this is the way to go forward, to be together. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the question, and I totally agree with Inga by my side. I think the living wage, the introduction of that will go a long, long way to helping and changing the whole situation. I'd like to see pensioners as well be given an annual above cost of living rise, because they've fallen back over the years and it's not right. However, there are certain circumstances, and I deal with a lot of constituency issues. I've been to a housing estate, and am I finished, am I? I do apologise, but we'll discuss things further if you wish.
Yes, it's our policy to raise the minimum wage to £10.20 an hour by 2022, so we would eliminate poverty in that way. We must also look at how social security works so people aren't unfairly sanctioned, because that leads to a lot of problems, and obviously deal with 0 hours contracts. But in terms of other members of our community, we do have on our committee, we have one here, an outreach worker for the Polish community. We have a candidate standing who is a Jersey-born but speaks Portuguese, and we believe in diversity in our society.
Absolutely, obviously, great concern about the poor and less fortunate. Concerning the child left in the hospital, obviously there is a presumption by the questioner that they were from a poor family, but obviously this may not actually be the case. Certainly a drop-in medical centre may have assisted in this department, because obviously the cost of GPs' fees are so ridiculously high compared to everyone else in the country. Thanks very much.
I think social security needs to be looked at across the board in relation to pensions, the contributions that people make, and the amount of money that people are given. I think the thing is that they up the tax, but they don't usually up the social security. And I think maybe we need to look at both the top end of social security, but also the bottom end as well, because I know there's people in our community that don't pay the minimum social security, so therefore they're told they don't get a pension at the end of it, and that can't be right. We need to make sure that everybody's catered for across the board.
I don't know the particular circumstances of this baby being left at the hospital, but I do know that it's very dangerous to start changing policies on the back of one particular incident. There is a social security under review. It's being reviewed and reviewed. It was promised for Christmas. The minister, still hasn't finished it. It does need to be looked at. Look, quite frankly, when I was a young man, I did go out and pick spuds. And I find it astonishing that in our community we have young men just as fit as I was then who are quite happy to sit at home. Potato picking is beneath them, as are other forms of labour, but they're still happy to pick up £90 a week for doing absolutely nothing. We really need a complete review.
The short answer is living wage, of course, which is bound to increase as time goes on, but I don't think it's enough, because there really is quite serious disparity when you have the Dean of Jersey departing and saying in his final words, the haves and the have-nots are a major feature of the island. That shows that there is an awareness of the depth of the problem. Thank you.
Reform Jersey has 10 key pledges. These include improving low wages, raising the minimum wage to £10 an hour by 2022, introduce 26 weeks of statutory parental leave and 3 weeks paid annual leave, reduce the cost of GPs consultations for those on low income, and a rent freeze for those in social housing. These are some measures to address poverty in Jersey.
It's a very interesting question, and it's multifaceted really, so I'll answer just one part of it. This past year I've been setting up, devising, running and then training and replacement for something called Parent Champions course, whereby we're taking young parents, most of them immigrants, but not all, with young children, showing them lots of new skills to help them to get into new jobs, and what resources are available out there. There's more than we think, but there's a bit there and a bit there and a bit there. We are showing them how to do this. Anyway, thank you very much for coming, and thank you for listening.
Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've chosen your 4 candidates, but if you haven't, this same group of candidates will appear before you on the 1st of May, that's in a week's time, and on the 8th of May, a week after that. And then the following Monday, you can, not here, no, the following Monday, you can meet your senatorial candidates on the 14th of May. So there are 3 more hustings just for this district alone. Can I thank Vote JE, first of all, who've done a good job with the manifestos, and they're recording each of these hustings. I'd like to thank the media. Big thank you to Darius and Steve, our excellent timekeepers. Let's give them a round of applause. Can I thank First House School for letting us use their gym? But most of all, can I thank you for coming this evening and asking really good questions and making this a really good first hustings for St Helier. Thank you.
Thank you.